This is Sneaker Gears. My name is Levi, and today we have, by special request, a performance review on the sneakers LeBron has been wearing here in the 2020 championship, specifically the LeBron 7 and LeBron 17. Let's get at it. If this is your first time watching the channel, thank you for joining. Please consider subscribing. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up at the end. Now, today we want to go over the playoffs of 2020 and what LeBron has worn. And we're going to start off by some of the shoes he hasn't worn. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Ambassador line, which is a Greater China or Southeast Asia exclusive that we don't see here in the States. That is more of a takedown model. So much like the Witness, that looks really cool, always has. Generally good performance reviews. I've never played in the pair, but obviously he has not worn those on his feet for the playoffs. Another pair he hasn't worn, surprisingly, is the Soldier line. Now, I broke these out, and these are completely dead stock. These are the championship LeBron Soldier 10s, which shows you he actually has worn the Soldier line through significant portions of his playing career, especially in the playoffs. These I thought were amazing looking shoes, obviously memorable with his championship, but the Soldier 14s look pretty cool, and he just hasn't worn them. I think he's had a few pictures of him having them at practice, so maybe he's worn them for practice, but nothing in game so far. Finally, we do have the LeBron 18 that looks incredible. I'm looking to get my hands on those. They look awesome. He did wear them for a few games, but his go-to shoes, especially here in the championship and the Western Conference Finals, has really been his go-to LeBron 17s, which have a completely different mold and last for him than what we have for the public, which makes sense that he has a shoe that's really catered to him. And actually the LeBron 7s, which I have here behind me, which are old school throwback, they look to be exactly the same as what we're able to get. Now, my review is going to be based on the OG LeBron 7s. These actually have surprisingly good performance all the way around. The age has not affected them as much as you would think, being obviously 10 years old. So I don't want this to affect the performance as far as what you've seen, like, oh, well, Levi using an old shoe and that's gonna, this performed as good as I remembered, as well as the newer versions of this look to be pretty much spot on. I don't think they've made any performance upgrades or downgrades for that matter. So if you do have some LeBron 7s currently, the retros, this should be a pretty equal performance. So as always, let's jump in with fit. Alright, so funny enough, for both of these models, I was able to go with my true size 12. Now, the LeBron 17, if you follow the channel, I did have some major issues with when they were first released. Starting off with, do not get any of the pairs with the solid traction outsole. The traction on those, and we'll get to that, is nowhere near as good as the translucent or clear traction options. So, that being said, the size 12 I have here, I do also recommend if you have a wide midfoot, especially, generally going up half a size, I was able to go with a much thinner insole. This specifically was from a Brooks Hyperion Tempo, which this offers pretty much no cushion. It's feels like 4 pieces of paper. So something this thin gave my foot just a little bit more room, both on top of the shoe for the girth of my foot, which is kind of the thickness, as well as the width, where I'm able to comfortably fit in a size 12 in this. Normally, if you do have a little bit more of a wider foot, I think a lot of people have been happier going up with the 12.5. I do also have a size 12.5, and funny enough, and I did say this in my prior review, that half size up seems to be more comfortable. Now that's because the cushion is technically tuned a little bit differently, but even going up half a size did improve the cushion slightly, and we'll get to that in a second. But that is using their Battle Knit. It's something that does mold to your foot. The more I played in it, the better it fit. And for being a knit, the containment is still quite good. Huge leaps from what we had on LeBron 15 and even the standard 16. Now, surprising, the LeBron 16 with the best performance and even better containment than the standard 17 was the LeBron 16 with the patent leather. That was a kind of a retro back to the LeBron 5. This patent leather gave you a tremendous amount of containment, and it kind of goes to show you the way they retro the LeBron 17 with the LeBron 6, I believe. No, forgive me, the 4, as far as having that foam posit look. It's a knit posit. That is something that the containment is elevated with these kind of additional models. Well, going back to the LeBron 7, the fit on this, going with a size 12, obviously with some break-in, that patent leather molds just perfectly. These fit awesome. My toe is right where you want it to be, true to size. I think even wide footers, you're going to be able to get your true size as a 12. It uses a standard tongue, nothing fancy like trying to get your foot inside of the 15. 17s, depending on the model, the tongues are slightly different. So if you have a high instep, you may have some issues, but both models go true to size. Now, as far as the materials and the break-in process, the materials, again, that is basically a knit. So they do break in really nicely. They do start to form to your foot. This, depending on the model, I know, the MVP models and some of the higher end models have like a quilted version material here. I imagine those are going to break in even better. This is using their old school, let's see, you guys can grab that there, their fuse or hyper fuse, and you can see kind of the knitting here. So it's meant to be very light. They did come with the 7 playoff version that I have that actually used a heel air and 4-foot zoom, so a little bit different. But this with the full length air is what he's actually been playing in, and this still has been surprisingly really cushioned and really, well, I shouldn't say really cushioned. The upper is cushioned. It feels really nice around the foot. Just the padding is just enough, and it was a shockingly good performer. Working our way down to support, that's where these two separate a little bit. Again, now we're talking about a standard LeBron 17 versus a standard LeBron 7. The upgraded LeBron 17 or the retro version does have even better containment. But if we're talking neck to neck standard, the containment on this with that additional patent leather kind of rand coming around the shoe really makes a huge difference. Same thing with that fuse material, that it does mold to your foot, but it doesn't have as much give as the knit. This is something that I can definitely see why he chose this, starting with that support where you have better containment. This has a much more stable, flat base versus, I mean, this is synonymous. You guys can tell the giant grooves that we have here that are can potentially lead to a very unstable platform depending on the movements and what you're doing. But I think the rubber compound does help with that if you get the clear translucent. So you have a flat, stable base. You have generally great containment. You have a huge, solid, really nice heel cup here that is just, let's see if you guys kind of works your way up 1, 2, 3 different layers with an outer half that kind of goes up. So you're really pulled back into the heel. The containment and support on this is what you would expect from a LeBron shoe throughout the years, where generally they are max cushion, max support, and I think he really gets that from this. The LeBron 17 is really the perfect conglomeration from what we had from the 15, 16, and then now the 17, where it's still the knit, it's still breathable, it still flexes really nicely, feels very natural. But if we're comparing apples to apples, if you're going full speed, that 7 is actually going to be a little bit better, although this be with that knit posit, which essentially has plastics kind of woven in and heated up with the knit, does a really good job. This is surprisingly good, and I can tell how they just kept going with the knit. Our LeBron 18 looks to be even better version, where you're getting the benefits of the knit, but you're still getting that strong containment that you're really looking for. This also has an incredibly beefy heel cup, but with that air going around, with the amount of compression you get with some of the cushion, it's not nearly as stable of a base. It's not nearly just as planted as you would want to be depending on the move. So the support on this is good. It is a max level support, but the 17 actually does a much better job. Down to the cushion, this is full length max air that apparently LeBron loves. The closest we're going to be able to get to this, which is just completely full length, which this is going really to the toe. I don't know if you guys can see that. It does not have a cutoff here like some of the other shoes. It's going all the way to the end, so it is quite impressive that you're getting complete air coverage. If you wanted the poor man's version of this, PG4, guys, this is giving you full-length air Strobel that actually is a little bit softer. It's not offering nearly the support. So that's a huge difference between these two, both lateral containment, the stability of the shoe. Overall, this is still a big upgrade. This, because of the pillars that are in this shoe that you're going to notice from normal Air Max units, it is still talking about the cushion quite firm. This is something that it plays fast. You feel like you have quite a bit of court feel. You're much lower to the ground than you are in the 17, and we can kind of put these head to head here. I don't know if you guys can tell, you're sitting way high up in the LeBron 17. The court feel is non-existent. You don't feel nearly as quick in this. This, you're getting better court feel. You're lower to the court, which makes sense. The cushion itself is quite a bit more firm. Like, this is something that there's nothing plush about it like you get mostly on here. There's nothing bouncy about it. This is air, but the air does the job where it's fantastic at absorbing impact. No matter the move, no matter how hard you land or jab or how aggressive you are, it is absorbing that impact. You're not feeling anything in your knees, your back, especially as a bigger player like LeBron is. This is something that's definitely protecting your body, and it's still an upgrade from the PG4, where this does not use nearly as much air. So even though it's slightly softer and closer to your foot, and it does offer decent impact protection, I was surprised how much better this is when you have that full-length air. Now, the cushion on the LeBron 17 is really throwing back with that full Air Max kind of 270, which is more than that, going around 720 style, however they want to say it. The midsole, as well as in between the air, is still a giant layer of Cushlon. And this is their Cushlon kind of 2.0, where generally this is soft, this is plush. You're getting a lot of foam. The Zoom Air does have some bounce to it. You definitely feel it compared to a shoe like the PG4 or the LeBron 7, where there's no zoom, there's no bounciness whatsoever. But it's not nearly as much bounce as something like a Jordan 34 or what we just talked in the last video, the BB NXT. But there's some definite bounce in there. You feel the shoe kind of pushing you back up, which is nice. Even though it's a heavy shoe and can feel clunky, once you get going, it wants you to run. If you land on a heel, and if you're a heel striker, this is fantastic, which LeBron is. And overall, the cushion is one of those, it's an absolutely max plush cushion. I think I rated this as number 2 or 3 as far as just the most cushion you get on a shoe in my top 5 video. You guys can check that out. I'll put a link up here. So two very different elements, and you can tell the different areas where LeBron was in his career when he got the LeBron 7 and now he has LeBron 17. So it's interesting to see him wear both of these depending on how he feels, and really taking advantage of giving him the best performance for each shoe so he can perform his best. Down to the traction. These guys couldn't be more different. Now, I think the biggest difference is going to be the separation that we have with all these segments on the 17. Really make a big difference on, depending on the move, how it's going to stick. This is going like old school. You have quasi like herringbone, you have some translucent sections, you have solid rubber. It's obviously 360. Hopefully you guys can see it right here. It is shockingly good. I was surprised. One, this is a 10-year-old version, so I was expecting to have some of that slickness. When shoes get older, that rubber compound loses some of its aggressiveness and they can feel very slick. So a lot of retros are really relegated to outside or outdoor play, where on asphalt or on concrete it sticks a lot better. Obviously you're wearing it down, but you can still enjoy them versus on hardwood. Between these two, it was close. The translucent does a much better job, but this was just so much more consistent on any move, on any area of your foot. You're going to be able to have confidence in it way more. It doesn't flex that much at all, so kind of like the LeBron 10s, this is something where you always have court feel or ground contact because it just doesn't move. Surprisingly enough, this, because of those grooves, you actually do have a little bit more flexibility where you may pivot and really only have ground contact here because the rest of the shoe is being lifted up. So you lose some of that, I guess, traction that you would get, but you're benefiting because your foot is able to move naturally and probably quicker. So there's always trade-offs in how you play, what's going to feel more comfortable to you. Overall, the traction is going to be significantly better on this, but if we're talking about this, I was surprised how much better the translucent and the clear tractions were over the solid tractions. But overall, I'm looking forward to LeBron 18, where we're having still some flex grooves, but it's a much better solid, completely covered outsole. All right, so wrapping it up, before doing a comparison here, obviously, which one's better? You got the 17, which is new, and the 7, which is 10 years old. Let's work our way from the bottom up. Traction. It's going to LeBron 7. Cushion, I may put it at a draw simply because they play very different. If you're a fast playing guard, if you're someone who needs impact protection but you still want to feel quick, this is so much better. If you're talking about just pure max cushion, this is one of the top shoes you can get, like almost ever. There's just an obscene amount of protection, which ranks it up there. So let's call that a draw. Support. Easily LeBron 7. The materials, the patent leather, the stability of it with the outsole. This is something that's going to give you way more containment and a lot more confidence in playing defense, being able to stop and having your foot stay on the footbed than the knit used on this. Now, this is a premier knit. This is an expensive shoe, and it does a great job. I don't want to knock it. But if we're talking about one versus the other, this one's still going to be a little bit better. So we're not talking, you know, a huge leap, but still, this is something that's definitely going to give you more security and protection. If you've had any kind of injuries and you want to feel a little more stable, definitely go with the LeBron 7. And finally, fit and materials. And obviously, we're talking about the premier knit that has gotten better every year, from the 15 to the 16 with the Battle Knit 1 and 2.0 to now the Knit Posit, and then the LeBron 18 talking about using a combination of all of those knits. It's just getting better every year. So this is a fantastic knit. This is something that definitely does feel premium, but having the different layers, having the raw leather and having the hyperfused and the patent leather, and then the different LeBron 7s that have come out with the different materials, I'm still going to give an edge to the old school LeBron, and maybe that's the retro head in me. This is something, at the end, the materials are subjective, but I think the fit, if we're talking about fit in combination, the 7 is just going to be better for more players. Whether you have a high instep, a wide foot, a narrow foot, you're going to be able to go overall true to size. If you want a super tight fit and you're a narrow foot, maybe go down half a size even. The LeBron 17 is one that has been finicky depending on your foot shape, where you have to go up half a size. Certain players have had a little bit too much length, and what happens is if your foot is not right where the balls of the feet are perfectly, whether forward or back, you're missing on how effective that traction, that cushion, that stability is going to be. So definitely a little more finicky. So the LeBron 7 is going to be overall a better fit. You guys add it up, the LeBron 7 is the better overall performing basketball shoe, surprisingly. And playing with them both and comparing them, it doesn't shock me that LeBron has been going back to as well and putting these on. Now, 1 through 17, that's a huge breakdown. If you're going to say, well, which one should he wear? But the fact that these retro, he has these at his disposal in awesome colorways, and they brought these back for us to enjoy as consumers, it's still a great playing basketball shoe. If you can get your hands on it, it's a shoe that looks good. It's good off court and on court. Obviously performs well. And it's just a durable shoe from a different era of basketball, from the outsole to the materials to the construction. So even if you might pay a little bit more, you're not paying that much more than what you pay on the LeBron 17 anyway, so it's definitely a shoe that you can enjoy for a lot of things. If you like that video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share. Put in the comments below if you think I missed anything or I was off on anything like that. Guys, girls, we really appreciate you on this channel. Thank you for your feedback, your encouragement. Really means a lot, and hopefully this video helps you out for your next basketball choice. We do have a few performance reviews coming up, but I did want to put this out by special request for a lot of you guys asking out there, and obviously give homage to LeBron, who is probably going to win his 4th championship this year, but kudos to the Heat for putting up an amazing fight, and I'm a huge Jimmy Butler fan, so I'm not going to count them out till it's over, said and done. Guys, this is Levi Sneaker Gears. Really appreciate you, and I'll come at you later.